Hello, everyone. On this occasion, I will explain about my research entitled Similarities of Human and AI Systems in Programming Plagiarism, Student Perspective. So first of all, the introduction. AI is growing rapidly and it heavily affects education. Many studies about AI in education focus on the positive impacts like personalized responses and 24-hour availability. There are limited studies capturing stakeholders' perspective about AI assistance in plagiarism and how it is different with human assistance. If AI assistant is considered equal to a college help, then existing plagiarism policies can be directly employed to AI-assisted plagiarism. Otherwise, there is a need to adjust the existing plagiarism policies. So, as the contribution, we have a survey comparing conventional acts of plagiarism with their AI-assisted counterparts where applicable. Conventional academic integrity scenarios were adapted and then expanded. For each scenario, respondents were asked whether the act was academically acceptable. We also asked the respondents about their perspective for AI in terms of correctness, completeness, and ability to summarize information from the internet. So these are the survey questions. So for example, as we can see, QO2, so paying another students to write the code and submitting it as your own work. So the AI version will be subscribing to AI version or AI service to write the code and submitting it as your own work. The survey was voluntary, distributed at the end of the second semester of 2023. We invited 87 programming students and 66 of them responded. So this is the result. So for Key O1, both CS1 and CS2 students agreed that purchasing complete code was unacceptable. Involving money for completing assessments might be a clear indication of plagiarism, or we can say contract cheating. For Key O2, many students agree that paying someone to complete assessments was unacceptable, while CS1 students felt the same for subscribing to AI and using it for completing assessments. Some CS2 students took the act was somewhat acceptable. Why? Because CS2 assessments were more complex than those in CS1, and AI might only be able to partly complete the assessment. CS2 students still needed to write some code by themselves and or integrated AI-generated code to their own solution. So for Key O3, the correct response rate was fairly low. Many students considered their own code could be reused without proper acknowledgement. For Key O4, many students agreed that incorporating one's work without permission or acknowledgement was inappropriate. The degree of agreement was comparable to that of AI. And for Key O5, copying one's work and disguising it was considered unacceptable. That applied not only for college work, but also for AI-generated work. For Key O6, around half of the students agreed that expanding one's work was acceptable, while the other half disagreed. The correct response rate was around 50% for both groups, and there was no significant differences between expanding a college work and AI-generated work. For Key O7, students considered that discussing how to approach a task with a college or an AI was acceptable so long as the solutions were written independently. Nevertheless, CS2 students had higher agreement than those in CS1, and the difference was significant. Why? Because the assessments were more complex and discussing how to approach a task was less likely to result in a straightforward solution. For Key OA, students agreed that discussing code with a college was acceptable. However, CS2 students again had higher agreement than CS1 students due to the complexity of their assessment. CS2 students believe discussing code with AI was less acceptable than discussing code with college. Perhaps it was because AI might generate unwanted code solutions. For Key O9, asking for advice to a college or an AI in dealing with troublesome code were somewhat acceptable. The advice still needed to be integrated to one's own solution. CS2 students were less certain that asking advice to AI was acceptable. For Key 10, only around 40% of the students agreed that asking a college to solve troublesome code was unacceptable. Some students might be uncertain about the act, given that most of the code was still written by students. The level of agreement, however, was improved to 63% for CS1 students when asking to AI. AI tended to completely rewrite short solutions. And for Key 11, half of the students agreed that replicating observed features without copying the code was acceptable. The other half disagreed, as the act might be considered as copying ideas. No statistical significance was observed when the inspiration came from another college or the AI. Students are neutral about AI correctness and completeness with average agreement score around 3. AI might provide correct and complete responses for simple tasks, but not for the complex ones. They tended to be unconvinced that AI was able to summarize information from the internet. Not all information from the internet was covered, and AI summarization mechanism might not be 100% accurate. There was no differences between CS1 and CS2 students regarding the matters. So as the conclusion, the study compared student perspective regarding conventional and AI-assisted plagiarism in programming education. Students generally believe that AI assistant was generally similar to human assistant in plagiarism. General programming plagiarism policies can be easily expanded to cover AI-assisted plagiarism. Since one students were convinced that asking AI to fix troublesome code was less acceptable than asking a college. CS2 students, on the other hand, believed that subscribing to AI service to write the code was more acceptable than paying a college. They also believe that discussing code and asking advice to fix troublesome code with AI service were less acceptable than college. Compared to CS1 students, CS2 students were generally more aware that discussing how to approach a task or discussing code were acceptable. Thank you.